Hi, I'm Jay.
And I'm Christopher.
Christopher? What's with
Christopher.
that?
That's my full name.
Nobody uses your full name.
No, everyone calls me Gigantor.
Oh, fair. Oh, yeah.
And we're the Grumpy Dungeon Masters.
Damn it, you cut me off. Oh, well. Yeah, we're grumpy.
You son of a bitch. Where's my children?
Matt Craig, the full orc barbarian sage, whose big brother is named Trevor.
Little brother.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, he's the little big brother. So he's younger, but bigger. He's the bully. Well, he could be smaller, I guess, and just be a real jerk. Maybe has more muscles than Craig does. He played sports growing up. Sports ball.
We forgot to do the intro again.
I'll add an intro. I always do.
We'll record it at the end and just cut it to the beginning, and no one will know the difference.
Yeah, so our outro is going to be our intro this time. It's like an outie becoming an innie.
So what were we talking about today?
I have no idea. What were we talking about today?
That's the podcast, folks. Thank you for joining in.
Hope you enjoyed it. It was a quick one.
No, we were talking about archetypes and the fact that I am running a new one-shot for Christmas, and I was trying to create 3 semi-unique archetypes for the Christmas one-shot. So a little bit of backstory on the Christmas one-shot. This is something I wrote back in 2016, rewrote in 2017, rewrote again in 2018, rewrote again in 2019, and now I'm not rewriting it. Well, I'm repositioning it. To be fair, that's what I did last.
He's rewriting it again.
No, so in 2018, I repositioned it. In 2019, I repositioned it. What I mean by repositioned it is I originally wrote it in 4th edition Fall Crest. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to publish this next year on DM's Guild or something like that. And this is before I knew all the rules. So I created my own city in the middle of a place. I kept the place vague. But then it turns out that when you publish a DM's Guild, you have to use 5th edition, not locations, but somewhere in the Faerun. So I have to reposition it here in the Faerun, which I've already found a place to do that, and I already got the information, spent a lot of time reading up on it, and basically I found a place I could stick it in, and no one would care.
Mind you,
that it's there.
I just want to point out, I really think that's annoying that they force you to put it in Faerun. I understand why, because of rights and everything, they want to make certain that people are writing campaign stuff based on their settings. But why does it have to be only Faerun?
Well, it could be Faerun, Theros, Eberron, and the other.
Okay, so they did allow the other handful, the other couple of settings they have.
Right, you can't do Wildmount.
Why can't you do Dark Sun or fucking Dragonlance? Kryn. Kryn was a great world.
Yeah, you can't do any of those. Because I don't think they have a 5th edition book for that.
They're not doing any updates on any of that stuff. That maybe later down the road, but nothing is out yet. But it would be nice if you could just, I don't know, fan fiction it.
So, on that point, there is Drive-Thru RPG, which is the same, which actually is the site that owns DM's Guild.
Yeah, I've purchased a lot of stuff through the Drive-Thru RPG before.
On Drive-Thru RPG, you can post whatever you want there in any way, shape, form, or capacity. It's just when you post a DM's Guild, it has to follow the setting guidelines.
So back to you repurposing, rewriting, rereading your thing.
It was a Christmas one shot that I decided to write. Like I said, I think it was 2016. for a friend of mine because he was DMing for us, and he wanted a break for Christmas. I said I would do it. I wrote a one shot. It was pretty good, and but don't say so for myself. And they enjoyed it and they had a lot of fun. And then I ran it the next year. I don't think I changed much. And then that's when I went to, and I decided I was going to publish it. So I wrote it in. It was in Volcrest, so I put it in its own world, and now I'm gonna just change some things and put it back into Faerun proper. I already found a place in the middle of Faerun, above the desert, that no one's. I haven't found any recent source material on, so I can fit it there without feeling like I'm stepping on anybody's toes. Not putting it in Icewind Dale because way too much has been written about that area. And
Yeah.
what was funny, when I wrote my first one shot and I placed it in Icewind Dale, I knew Frost Maiden was coming, but I didn't think that it'd be like this tidal wave of materials of just Icewind Dale stuff. So,
Yeah,
um,
you didn't exactly converse with me about where you were setting it. I mean, we had brief conversations, but I think you made the final decision on Icewind Dale without actually asking me. I definitely would have steered you away from there just because of the fame due to the R.A. Salvatore books.
well, it wasn't. I placed everything in the Dread of the Ice Dale one shot. I needed a town that was next to a mountain. So, Carreg Koenig and Kelvin's Karn were perfect. It's a perfect location. Small town, no one there. Big mountain full of mysterious bad stuff. That's great. It was,
And former home to Tristu Urden, Burner Battlehammer, Wolfgar, yeah, like the whole crew. So
yeah, it's a very big mountain. So,
yeah,
um, sticking a Dwarven outpost up there with a secret buried inside, meh. That's easy. It just
yeah.
adds in.
Hey, it still
Um,
worked. It worked out great, but yeah, now there is a lot more source material. Like 2 months later, that wasn't there before.
so if I would have had the details of Icewind Dale beforehand, I could have changed 2 paragraphs in my first one shot, and it would have fit in perfectly into the Icewind Dale story as a whole. Um,
If you get
don't
a
want to
chance,
get too.
if you decide to ever rewrite it and re-release it, there you go.
Yeah, I can't get into too much details because Icewind Dale just came out. It's very suspenseful. There's a lot of twists and turns. It's
Yeah,
very, you
we'll end
know,
up talking about it probably on the next podcast. We'll do spoiler free if at all possible. If we're gonna have spoilers, well,
yeah.
I'll put in a
But
little
if
blurb to skip this portion of it.
but if you read the Icewind Dale book and then you read my adventure, the two will click almost instantly as like, wow, this actually would fit there perfectly. Blizzard hired or Wizards hired me.
Yeah,
I'll write stuff.
Watsy, he's calling you. You should
Um,
answer.
so back onto my Christmas one shot. The Christmas one shots all set to good to go. Um, I can use the same maps. I can use the same town name. Everything's good. I just have to change up the intro some. Ask a couple of our friends and shout out more if I could borrow their names and maybe their likenesses for a couple of characters that I
Oh shit,
use because
that's right. Yeah, I forgot some of our LARP characters were now role playing characters.
well, most of our group were just PCs that I had made. I had used a couple, like I had used Aiden and Shandella
Hmm.
as major NPCs in that setting, and I can easily change them. But I figure I'll just talk to them and see if they'll let me borrow their names and likenesses to a degree.
Yep. I mean,
Um,
don't feel
but
bad. All of the major D&D settings, the original creators did the same thing. They made all of
yeah,
their PCs into these uber powerful NPCs at some point. Hell, every single spell that's got a name attached to it was done that way. It's
so
true.
I just got to do that, and I want to add something unique to the write up. So I want to create 3 archetypes. Um, the first archetype is a ranger, and almost I could apply it to like the fighter or maybe rogue. So I like say like any one of those 3 classes could use this one, and it's like a reindeer swarm master, for lack of a better term. The idea behind it is that once per short rest or long rest, they can concentrate for 10 minutes and summon a swarm of reindeer, of spectral reindeer that will fly around them. And then they can use these reindeer to add a d6 to their attack, to their damage, to a saving throw, to a skill, those kind of things. And once you use up all the reindeer, they're all used up until the next short rest. There's a little bit of flavor because just the area in Faerun, there's just pretty much reindeer and polar bears. So it would kind of work. It's not the most creative, and there's a couple other extra things you can do with the reindeer at the higher levels, but I haven't really worked out all those details yet. But it's just something almost Battle Master esque in the Ranger toolkit.
Right.
Not groundbreaking, not world shattering, not class defining, but it's just a thing. And I wanted to do two more. So the second idea was the Toy Master, and I wanted to attach this to like the Artificer subclass or subclass, the Artificer class. But we could still put on a couple others. The idea behind this one is you spend downtime either during your short rest or while you're RPing out in the world to collect scrap, and you take the scrap and you stuff it into a little toy or a little satchel that you have. And then once per short rest, you roll, I think it was 5d6 plus 10, and that's the amount of scrap that you have in the bag. Now, you, as a bonus action, can reach into your bag and pull out a piece of scrap, as an action, you could reach into the bag and you could pull out a toy which takes up 10 scrap. Then that toy is a random toy off of a table of toys, and it has a random effect tied to that toy, very similar to the Wild Magic Sorcerer. So it won't be
we're gonna come back to this one.
so it won't be something as huge as like Fireball at your location that kills everybody, but positive effects and maybe some negative effects that range just from using that toy. And you can spend additional scrap to pull out a toy of your choice to do an effect. And then I still want to do a third like archetype, and I'm still kind of on the fence about what to do for that one. There was an idea of having a rogue archetype where they can create a snowman, and then that snowman kind of like is like a familiar to them, and they can use that to grant advantage and do reactions and kind of almost exist as like almost like a unseen or like a seen unseen servant, and kind of like do opportunity attacks in place of the rogue and stuff like that. But really haven't worked out a lot of those ideas yet. And then this is creating archetypes, something I have never done. I've always written adventures and just used whatever base classes exist in 5th edition. I never actually gone out and actually try to create my own class.
I have created other. It was prestige classes in 3rd edition. I have done that a couple of times before. It's not in 3rd edition. It was very, very difficult because there were already so many out there.
Yeah.
In 5th edition, it's not nearly as difficult because there's still a lot of room to maneuver.
Oh yeah, the other idea is to take the Unearthed Arcana rules for the Scion and have a subclass dedicated just to those or Unearthed Arcana rules. And for those unfamiliar what those rules are, I just learned about these a couple weeks ago. And essentially you have a D6, and if you roll, you can add that to like your spells and damage and stuff. You have a list of abilities that you can use that D6 with to do special effects or special abilities or damage. And if you roll a 6, the die downgrades to a D4. And if you roll a 4, then it disappears until you take a short rest, where you get the die back at a D6. and as you level up, the die gets bigger and bigger. Um, we can definitely link to the Unearthed Arcana that shows all the rules for that. I really, really, really like this idea. I like this idea of having this just extra die that you're using, and sometimes you could be really lucky and just roll 5, or and never like lose the psychic die, or you could just be really bad and only have 2 uses out of it for a short rest. So I'm thinking I may do something with that, but I haven't decided like what kind of class or what kind of flair, because I wanted these archetypes to have a Christmas flair to them, because it is a Christmas one shot, and I think I'm kind of getting there with some of, with at least with the reindeer swarm master and the toy master. So I just gotta kind of work out a third. But you asked me to not get too in depth with it because you wanted to talk about why you don't like the toy master one.
No, I actually I love the toy master idea. I don't love the scrap idea. Uh, so I think the scrap idea is wonderful flavor. Like it helps fill out the the type behind the character class or behind the archetype. But I think it's adding another random effect to then get random effects. Uh, that would be like rolling. Say you're playing a wild magic sorcerer. Say at that point you have to roll dice to see what spell you cast, and then roll to see what your random effect is on top of that.
See, I like that though, and that's actually
That one that's absolutely impossible to balance. Random rolls for characters makes it difficult to balance them anyway. Notice with the wild magic sorcerer, it's still pretty balanced just because you're just a sorcerer. So you're still getting your spells, and that doesn't really alter much. The random effects, sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're harmful. Most of the time, they really don't do anything other than grow you a feather beard or accidentally levitate.
so. I played a wild magic sorcerer for the entire Lost Mines of Fandelver.
Findelver.
Yeah, I played a wild magic sorcerer for the entire thing, and I was not stingy about using my spells. Um, and the DM let me, like, every time I used a spell, I got to refresh my my advantage die mechanic, and I only got the wild magic table to proc twice during the entire campaign. There, and the problem,
And that's
you
what
say
I'm
you don't
saying.
you say you don't like random effects, but
No, I love random effects.
no, the random fact to get to the random wild table. So the fact that I have to roll a d20 after I cast a spell of my choice to get a 1 in 20, a 5% chance of actually then procking the wild magic table, and it only happened twice.
But you can, if I recall correctly, as a wild magic sorcerer, you can force it to happen.
No, you don't force it. You don't force it to happen. Um,
Gotta
you
pull out
the
my
D
book.
the DM basically says is the one that forces the wild magic die roll to happen. Okay, whenever I cast a spell, the DM is supposed to go, okay, roll on the wild magic. Okay, you didn't get a 1, so you don't have anything happen. And I kind of talked with him. It's like, hey, just let me, every time I cast a spell, let me roll on the wild magic to happen, because it's just never happening.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
okay.
promised
It was
I
the tide.
promised him not to abuse the every time you roll to see if wild magic occurs, you get advantage. Like, I wouldn't just walk outside and magic missile the sky, so I'd have advantage on my next thing.
Yeah, that's the tides of chaos. That's what I was talking about. You don't actually make it happen, but you increase your not you increase the amount of times you're rolling on the wild magic to see if it happens by using the tides of chaos.
Yeah. So when all the like I said, we did it for every single spell I cast, and I was not stingy. I blew through column pretty much every time I could.
I mean, yeah,
Eh,
it's only a 1 in 20 chance. So yeah,
twice,
yeah. I know.
twice in a whole campaign.
I could believe that. I mean, hell, I have entire. I'll go 3 game sessions and not roll a nat 20. I've been there. So
So the idea of the scrap was to rein in a little bit of the 1 in 20 chance of wild magic to happen. So, and the numbers can change into something that's more fair. So essentially, during your short rest, you collect scrap. It only takes 10 scrap to pull a toy out of the bag. So my initial thought was 10d6 plus 10 scrap for every short rest. That averages out between, I think it's 20 and 30 on the 10d6 on the bell curve. That's like the bigger part of the bell curve is like 20 to 30
mhm.
plus 10. So you would have 3 to 4 toys you could pull out of the bag.
Your
Yes,
average
there's
is going to be around there. Yeah.
yeah. So yes, the possibility is low, or there is a possibility that you could roll super low and get just 10 plus your 10. So the very minimum you could get would be 2 pulls from the bag. And there's also a chance you could roll straight maximum, and then you would be pulling out 7 things from the bag.
I think you're way better off just saying you can do this a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier and moving on.
Yeah, it'd be simple. It would be simple for that, but that's essentially a warlock then.
No,
Where like,
because you're
okay, here are your 3 or 4 pack slots, and they
yeah,
refresh on a short rest, and you're pulling out a random effect instead
but
of doing a spell.
you're already an artificer, so you're still going to have whatever the stuff the artificer can do on top of this.
Right.
Then as your archetype, if you do this, you get just assuming an 18 intelligence because that's normally where people are going to be at. You're going to have 4 uses of this daily to create a random effect, of which most of them are not going to be super powerful as your
Right.
action. So you're already like I am not even positive this is something that people would use. I mean, I get
No.
it. The character, the archetype is supposed to be for fun anyway. It's a Christmas one shot. They're not supposed to be super powerful. But even in those cases, I think they need to be at least moderately sort of balanced to be useful. Um,
Yeah.
why would you pick this archetype over any other archetype besides the fact that it's just sort of random fun?
And that's true. And I think the random fun is what I'm more going to be going for than anything else.
Yeah, I just feel simplifying it works. It works better. You can still
No,
have 20 random effects that can be hilarious and sometimes occasionally awesome.
right. And there was also the thing we talked about. We're adding in like if you were like at like level 11 or so, you could spend 15 or 20 scrap to pull out the toy of your choice to give you a little bit more control on the bag and pulling out effects that you want to occur.
See,
So it's something that
I think that's a better use of it. Is
yeah,
making your 7th level or 11th level one where you actually do the scrap aspect of it. At that point you just roll and do the method you were talking about. That way they're going to have on average 3 or 4, and that's 3 or 4 times when doing this that you can control what you're pulling.
yeah. So I mean that's just been the thoughts that we've had for the Toy Master and kind of getting it out there. I ran it by a few other people,
Mhm.
um, and they didn't give me any like yays or nays in either direction, whether they liked or disliked anything. Um,
It's hard to get people to sit down and focus on the actual conversation taking place in front of them. Eh,
it's also very nerdy when you're talking like D and
yeah.
D game design to
Well,
people
yeah,
who are like,
you need to be talking to people who are into game design or have some sort of an interest in that. If you're talking to hell, most D&D players don't even have an interest in that.
well, I told the wife about the
I'm sure
reindeer
it's
swarm
great.
master because that was her original class when she played the one shot last year,
Mhm.
and she's excited for that. And then I told her about the scrap idea with the toy master, and she was very excited for it. She likes the idea that she could roll low and not have any scrap. And then I was like, yeah, but I mean, you're excited about it now, but
I mean, don't take my word for it.
no, no. I was
This
like,
is yeah, this is it's for a one shot of Christmas. So it's supposed to be a little silly and off the wall anyway. So the truth is, if that's specifically what this thing is for, having a random roll to then get a random roll, it's not the end of the world.
yeah. But what I found funny was is like we were also rolling up Icewind Dale characters, and she had to choose between like having a lot of this one thing or a lot of another thing. So she had to like make a sacrifice in her character. And now it's essentially I'm using the variant rule for encumbrance,
Mhm.
and she wanted to be a very smart cleric, so she had to sacrifice her points someplace. So she sacrificed her points in strength. Now she can't carry anything. So
I
she's
know
very
that.
ups-
I know that feeling all too well.
so she's very upset by that. So I was very surprised when she was like, "Oh yeah, I love this idea where you can roll low and get no scrap and have no spells. This sounds great." And I'm like,
Yeah. What's the worst that
"No."
could happen?
So
Yeah. It, yeah, and I understand the sacrificing to. Uh, so on in the Star Wars game that we're playing, I'm dealing with that right now. Like I had the idea to play the gambler and all, and then we did combat for 4 sessions in a row where I was pretty much completely worthless. So I'm actually having to pick up other classes that I normally wouldn't have considered just to be able to do anything in combat besides a more than 1d6 of damage.
yeah, and I felt the bite there with my class, but now that I'm actually like,
Yeah,
well, we're six now.
you spent a whole podcast bitching about rogues. Well, now I'm going to bitch about the gambler.
I hate gamblers.
Yeah.
Well, now that I'm also subclassing like you are, I think things will get a little better.
Hmm.
I don't know. But yeah, and it's just when you see the game and you see how it's set up to be very ranged heavy, and you have these Mando clones and these assassin droids putting out 1,700 attacks and dealing 50 damage per attack at level 3, and you're kind of like, well, I got a blaster rifle. I did a D6 plus 4.
So
Yeah.
I ran the Star Wars game for a little while, and melee is definitely very viable option because one of my players went the barbarian route. I don't remember what they call them in Star Wars, but it's just a damn barbarian class. Played a Trandoshan like Bosk, and all he did was melee. He had a gun for situations where he couldn't reach them, but his primary function was to get in there and just start smashing people. And when he did, he was very, very good at it.
Yeah. I'm still so far in my Wookiee war chief idea.
Yeah, see, that's what you should have been. You have the bolt, was it bolt caster? I don't remember what they call those things. The crossbow, and then get you like a vibro blade or something or other, and just start wrecking people as a Wookiee. Pull their arms off, beat them to death with it. So the oh yeah, so we've been talking about this Christmas one shot, which reminded me about because there's so much good stuff on the DM's Guild. And a while back, I picked up this one called Deck the Dungeons: Heroics to Herald the Holidays, and
Okay.
it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's 11 archetypes, all for Christmas stuff.
Okay.
So they have the otherworldly patron, the saint, which is actually just a warlock archetype. There's the primal path of savings, barbarian, I believe. Martial archetype lumberjack. There's yeah, the divine domain, with the duality domain. I'll have to look that one up. They have ranger, which is a reindeer rider. You might want to tell your wife about that one. The rogue, they get the frosty sprite, which is all. I don't. I'd have to read it again, but it might be somewhat aligned with what you were talking about, taking the rogue and having the snowman do distract and do other things. There's the monk tradition, the way of revelry. Sounds like a drunken monk. The arcane tradition, school of king making. Sorcerer's origin, the Nephilim Genesis. Bard College, the College of Decoration, which is amazing, by the way. And the Druid Circle of Solstice.
That was also kind of like my idea. Instead of doing maybe one archetype for each particular class, is to write an archetype that would apply to like 3 of them.
Mhm.
Like have like my ranger idea also apply to rogue and fighter, and then also have like the toy master apply to the artificer, mage, and druid, I guess. And be very let anyone kind of choose that idea, because yeah, essentially, if I'm kind of going to go down this route, I pretty much should make an archetype for every single class. I just don't know if I have that time.
Yeah, I mean that would be ideal, and it's something. I mean, I don't think you're going to have it done by Christmas. We're getting pushing in that direction now, but it's something you could work on for next year. And hell, I mean, honestly, if you get enough of them together, just release it as another PDF. Do it like
Yeah.
the at this point, you'll have so many ideas. You just keep releasing stuff on the DMs Guild.
Well, like I said, luckily the adventure that I have has been played multiple times over multiple years, and with multiple DMs DMing it, and it's been pretty well received. So I'm not really doing much to the actual story of it. Um, Got to change some stuff on the maps, but that's about it. Nothing too drastic.
Yeah, like I know you let Aaron run it. I think he did, and I've read. I'm pretty sure I've read through it before.
Yeah, and then I had my other DM friend run it as well.
Yeah.
So at least overall, it was very well received, and so I don't have to do much for the actual adventure. Just I need to get some artwork done and put it in the right template and pretty up and send it on its way and sell it for $2.99, and then get 250 people to buy it, so I don't feel
So you don't feel like you're a failure.
yeah. Um, but yeah, because I know the first one's definitely stacked in my favor for its sale price, and I think
Sale price. It was after the writing event. Yeah, there were a lot of things behind that one.
yeah.
Releasing something solo at that point, you're just sort of you're pissing in the wind. I mean, it's yeah, you have to
Well,
you have to find a way to promote it.
speaking of the writing event, the this weekend is a D&D 2020 celebration. Ashley Warren is, I think, live right now while we're talking, up on Twitch, talking about how to become a D&D designer. Um, and her RPG writer workshop is hosting another one-shot writing session in November.
Crap, you're gonna
Um,
sign me up again, aren't you?
yes, and this time you have to get past day 3.
I got to day 4. No, it's 5. Day 5.
um, so I'm looking forward to that. I actually already have that idea in my head about what that one shot's going to be. So I have to finish this one shot by the end of September, and then probably get it polished up, and then I'll probably like publish it on DM's Guild at the end of October, beginning of November, probably November 1st, because that's kind of the start-ish of the Christmas season, kind of. And
Oh, I'm sure if I went to Home Depot right now, there's probably Christmas decorations in there.
the Halloween stuff is already on sale. Christmas stuff is up, and
Yeah.
then you go past the Christmas stuff, and there's the New Year's box, and you go past that box, and then there's the Valentine's Day box, and you go past that box, there's Easter, and you're just kind of like, I
We're,
don't
s-
think
we're
this stuff leaves the store.
yeah, we're still a month and a half to Halloween, but I'm sure Christmas stuff will be up real soon.
So yeah, I'm gonna probably release it officially at the November 1st. I'm gonna have it have it all finished and written up by the end of this month, and then try to get it into some reviewers' hands. Because the thing I didn't do before is I didn't have a chance to um, get it into reviewers' hands to actually do anything fun or exciting reviews with it. So I think that hurt a lot. Where a few people who did do that got a lot more exposure. So hoping maybe that helps out some more for the Christmas one shot. Plus, I already have an awesome cover lined up.
I hope
And
that works out. Have they responded to you yet?
yes, I got the official go ahead to use it.
Oh, sweet. Okay, awesome.
So that's all taken care of. So I got a great cover.
Yeah,
Get some more
that's going to
artwork
be
done.
that's going to be one of the best pieces of artwork on all of DM's Guild.
Yeah, it will be.
That is not a joke. That is true.
And it's one of their first pieces too.
Yeah, mad skills. We'll talk more about them when things are closer to being done. Hell, maybe we can even get him on here. Hadn't even thought of that. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yep, he's been DMing some games too.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I've played with him before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. So I can already tell you my idea for November. A paragraph kind of like pitch meeting that I have for it. So you were pretty much and everyone listening was very well aware of Tomb of Annihilation and my players kind of stumbling their way through that and dying horribly everywhere.
I can't wait to run this next one, this Rime of the Frost Maiden. I want to see how badly my players do. It's going to be wonderful. Anyway, go ahead.
So the one shot. So at the end of Tomb of Annihilation, there's a point where you as a DM have to basically put an NPC inside of like a corpse bag and put them on an altar. And the players are supposed to walk up and unzip the bag, and to their shock, it's supposed to be an NPC that they have interacted with.
You mean Volo?
In Cholt, and it's supposed to be this big shock, and they're at the end of the tomb, and you're supposed to save them, and everything's supposed to be happy. So since we started at the beginning of Tomb of Annihilation, there were no NPCs, so I used an NPC that everyone knew and loved, which was Volo, and I think I mentioned that before.
Yeah, you talked about it. You told the horror story of what happened to poor Volo.
So the other thing that I may not have mentioned was that the player who killed Volo had no idea who Volo was, and she killed him with a Hellfire Rapier. So his soul was immediately sent to the River Styx and Avernus, and I rolled the die, and it would turn into a Lemire or whatever, however you pronounce it.
Oh no, I'm not attempting to pronounce this again on the podcast. Last time I did, Craig cut out as I was pronouncing it correctly. So yeah.
So the one shot is actually going to be rescuing Volo from hell. And I already have a good idea about how to cycle that in, starting the players off in Baldur's Gate. Maybe I should start them off in Waterdeep and then send them to Baldur's Gate. And then like have them fight some demons along the way because the demons want to keep Volo in hell. And having them get to Baldur's Gate so they can basically find some way of teleporting into hell, pretty much probably through the same way. Just use the same way they got down there in Avernus. And then I probably am going to have them have to journey over Avernus a little bit to get to a fortress and just kind of fight their way through a fortress. And I'm not thinking it's less of a one shot, maybe a 5 to 8 adventure is what I'm thinking of.
A short module.
Yeah. Maybe not 5 to 8, maybe pick a different level range. Because I seem to start at level 5 a lot because it's very easy for me.
Yeah, level 5 is a good starting point. That's where you get extra attack. That's when the players sort of start really coming into their own. You get extra attack and fireball.
Yeah. Oh, about that. So I got a message on Reddit. If you haven't seen our subreddit, Grumpy Dungeon Masters on Reddit, we do have a subreddit on Reddit. I got a message on Reddit about how a guy ran my one shot, enjoyed it, but said that all the encounters were too weak because all they had to do was fireball their way through every single encounter. And I was like, oh, that's very good advice. Thank you for giving that feedback. I'll try to factor it in when I write encounters in the future.
So
And
all of your future encounters, everything just needs resistance to fire. Everything. Or immunity, your choice. It's just hellhounds and devils from now on. That's it.
So I really wanted to ask him more questions, but I didn't think they'd be useful. But like, what party comp did you let them run where they had fireballs, plural, to throw out?
2 sorcerers and 3 wizards.
Yes, with 2 sorcerers and 3 wizards, most encounters don't last long.
Yeah, I'm sure that was his comp.
So, yeah, I mean, if you're running 6 wizards in your party and you think the game is too easy for your players because they're just using fireball, I can't fix that for you. I'm sorry.
Get better players.
Yeah. Maybe throw in a couple more mind masters and stab them first.
Yep. What you do is you throw in things that are just resistant or immune to their spells, and watch as they squirm horribly as they die within about 2 rounds. Because, well, yeah, wizards don't handle that very well.
Yeah, so I definitely want feedback on that one shot because I still want to grow as a designer and make more fun, interesting encounters. But I don't think there's a way I can design around. Well, we cast 4 fireballs and everything died.
I mean, you know good and well, it is impossible to plan for everything that your players will do, especially with one shots. Because I mean, one shots you could set restrictions ahead of time, and we'll talk about this soon in the session 0 episode. But briefly, you need to set sort of ground rules if you're concerned with stuff like that. I've run one shots before where I didn't set ground rules, other than maybe like no, you can't play this race or whatever. But when it came to classes, I didn't give any heads up, so they ended up playing 4 melee classes and just absolutely and utterly steamrolled every single encounter because that's just how things worked out. Everybody sort of gets used to the mix of, oh, you've got a cleric, a wizard, and 2 melee types or whatever. That's sort of the expected outcome. But if your players don't communicate when putting classes together or putting characters together, you end up with just some weird mixes like 2 sorcerers and 3 wizards. At that point, if it's a campaign, you kind of get, you can work around it because you know what's coming, you know what to expect, you know what your players can do. But one shots, you have no idea what these characters are capable of.
Yep, and I felt kind of bad because I felt like maybe he DM'd it and didn't enjoy it because they were too easy and he had to beef them up. But I wrote in there like, hey, if you want to make these things harder, do these things to make things harder.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I
all
recall
those,
it. Yeah, very specifically in yours, you had in the sidebars occasionally. You can, these are alterations that you can make if you want, if you think it's too hard, if you think it's too easy. So
yeah. So, but none of those situations would have affected Fireball because it's Fireball. Fireball is overpowered by game design intent. The only spell the next spell is like a 6th level spell, which is an ice spell that does equivalent damage. So it's like if Fireball is ruining your campaign because people are just using Fireball and killing everybody, let the players have fun and do that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if that's all they're doing and they won't do anything else but throw fireballs out and then basically force your hand to like, no, I'm going to take a long rest until I get my 6 fireballs back. By the way, do they have the necklace of fireballs magic item in the shop? Because I want to buy that because I don't want to cast firebolt ever again. I just want to cast fireball every time I can. Well, then don't sell them that necklace of fireballs.
You come across 2 goblins. I fireball it.
Right.
they're goblins. They have 12 hit points. I fireball them. Okay
Hey,
then.
it's a reason. There's a good reason where there's a joke. It's like I didn't ask how big the room was. I said I cast fireball, and
I've definitely never done that before. Recently.
so it's just it's supposed to be overpowered for a reason, and it is, and it's fun, and it's great. And if your level 5 campaign has more than one character to cast fireball, then just you got to work your way around it. You can't blame the designer for that. I'm not saying he blamed me. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, that was his feedback was yeah, and D&D specifically with 5e, it also sort of goes in phases. Level 1 to 4, you kind of suck. I mean, let's just be honest. Levels 1 to 4 really rough. Level 5, everyone you know, everyone becomes overpowered. I say everyone sort of generously, but specific classes become very overpowered at 5th level. And by about 8th or ninth level, that all sort of balances back out again. And I haven't looked at it. Maybe I'll do this, but I'll start digging through the classes and find the sort of break points for each class as to when they become more powerful. Because you're going to get certain abilities and feats and so forth at certain points, and those are going to be the points where that class just becomes a lot better.
Yeah. What is that for the rogue? Because I don't think I've hit that yet.
Yeah, it's never gonna happen.
I was talking with my wife about playing the rogue, and this is after she listened to the podcast about me hating rogues,
Mhm.
and I think it's just the thought and the process behind the rogue, where it's not about it's not about how hard you hit or what you hit with. It's the fact that you hit with sneak attack damage to trigger sneak attack to get all the sneak attack die. Where I'm so used to being like, I'm using a great sword. I have brutal one. And I swing it and I re-roll those ones and I get to hit things hard for one hit.
Rawr, me
Not
smash good.
yeah. So
uh,
I think it's just a mentality thing that I just don't have, and I'm like, I just want to hit it really hard. I don't care about stabbing it with daggers and hoping I do a lot of damage.
yeah, it's outside of your comfort zone. Uh, Not every class. I don't really believe every class is going to have a breakpoint. I think rogues do not. I think it's just consistency with them. You're just going to continually, gradually be on par with everything else. You're never going to overpower things. Now that being said, you can take archetypes that certainly help, and if you start multi-classing at that point, you can definitely do some broken stuff, taking a few levels of ranger. You know, uh, get that archetype of was it Gloomstalker? I think is a lot overpowered, and then you combine that with rogue, and you get one of the more powerful class combinations. If you're just a pure rogue all the way up, no, you probably will never have that point of being OP.
So yeah, I'm still trying to get used to it, and I'm hoping these archetypes is a fun little lesson in designing archetypes, and you know, I can take some of the feedback that I have gotten. And if you are listening to this and you did purchase my one shot and you liked it, please leave a review on DM's Guild. It'll help us out a lot, especially when we release the next one. Um,
Honestly, if you're listening to this, if you have an archetype idea in your head, or just hell, just throw some random idea at us for an archetype, and we'll try to put something together and talk about it on the podcast.
you can do it on our Reddit
Yeah, throw
that
it
we
on
have.
Reddit, throw it on Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Just reach out to us. We're easy to find. But yeah, that could be fun. That could be a lot of fun. I enjoy. I like making archetypes and things of that nature. Definitely makes you think.
Well, then uh, next in November, you can actually get past day 5, and then you can make your own.
Man, you're sure asking a lot of me.
I gotta DM 4 games. I'm so tired. I gotta sleep in. Oh no, I can't take notes. Oh, I know we're running long on this, but blessings to all the DMs out there that take intricate notes about their campaign settings and record them and hand them to your players as carryover. Our DM that does the Star Wars game does that ad nauseum.
Thanks,
He's
Eric.
great at that. I don't read the notes because I'm a terrible player. And as a DM, I don't take notes. If the players forget it, then I've forgotten it.
Uh,
And
absolutely.
I'm terrible at
I
that.
absolutely do take notes. My notes are absolute nutter chicken scratch. They are not laid out in any possible form or function so I can find them later when necessary. They're also all handwritten in a notebook. I don't do anything online as far as that goes.
And by take notes, I mean not just. I'm not saying just like, hey, Shelly wants or my wife wants to do this with her backstory about making a cool garment for a noble. I'll make that note somewhere, and I'll keep that as part of story design later. But I'm saying take notes as in they write down almost action by action, encounter by encounter, what has happened in the entire session, and then write a write up on it and post it and saying, okay, here is the story that I wrote, essentially your fanfic about what your characters did.
Are people that organized?
I
How?
don't know.
How do you motherfuckers do this?
I don't do it. And if my players feel disenfranchised because I don't, I'm sorry.
God,
But
man, I
I
wish
will
I didn't
never
have
be.
I wish I wasn't one of these people with ADD.
Uh,
just to be organized for one day. Just one day. That's all I ask. All
yeah.
right.
So that's everything I had for
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. We rehashed a couple of things, but I think it was fine. All right, Craig. We're getting out of here. Go home, buddy. Get some sleep.
Goodbye, Craig. Make sure to check your closet for your brother
Don't forget to pay your light bill
and the water bill.
and your internet. That's more important.